Hi, good afternoon. Today we'll talk about the Grecian Maxim or Grecian Cooperative Principle by Herbert Paul Grice. Hello, and I am Kirsten Thea, and I am here to discuss with you the Grecian Maxim or Grecian Cooperative Principle. But first, what is cooperation? Cooperation can be understood as an essential factor when speakers and listeners are interacting. In other words, it is the expectation that the listener has towards the speaker. The speaker is supposed to convey true statements and say nothing more than what is required. When people talk with each other, they try to converse smoothly and successfully. Cooperation is the basis of successful conversations. Grice says that when we communicate, we assume, without realizing it, that we and the people we are talking to will be conversationally cooperative. We will cooperate to achieve mutual conversational ends. The cooperative principle. A principle proposed by the philosopher Paul Grice in 1975, whereby those involved in communication assume that both parties will normally seek to cooperate with each other to establish agreed meaning. The idea that people cooperate with each other in conversing is generalized by Grice. Paul Grice introduced the cooperative principle in his 1975 article, Logic and Conversation. The principle is based on the assumption that participants in a conversation cooperate with each other and usually attempt to be truthful, informative, relevant, and clear in order to facilitate successful communication. The speaker is cooperative and intends to communicate something. That something must be more than that the words mean. It leads to implicature. There is a set of guidelines for effective and rational use of language. So, make your conversational contribution such as is required at the stage as at which it occurs, by the accepted purpose or direction of the talk exchange in which you are engaged. Specifically, there are four maxims under this general. So the four maxims are maxim of quality, maxim of quantity, maxim of relation, and maxim of manner. So these maxims look at first sight like rules, but they appear to be broken more often than grammatical or phonological rules are. For example, as we will see later, and this is why Grice uses the term maxim rather than rule. So the first maxim is we have here maxim of quality. It requires information provided in conversations to be genuine and justified. Grice proposes this maxim as an explanation for a certain kind of regularity in conversational behavior with respect to the authenticity of information provided at each turn of a conversation. When engaged in conversation, the maxim of quality requires that you do not say what you believe to be false. Do not say that for which you lack adequate evidence. For example, we have here, Jim, do you know where the Big Ben clock tower is? It's in London. One find this normal. Why? Because the maxim is observe. Jim does not contribute what he believes to be false and to be unsubstantiated. So, maxim of quality may seem at first sight that it would be simpler for this maxim to be tell the truth. Another example we have here. Jenny, how do you like this novel? Oh, I like the red cover. Why do we find Jenny's reply strange? Because the maxim is violated. Jenny says something that evidently she does not believe in. That is, she told a lie. Another, Jenny, how do you like this novel? Oh, I like its red cover. The cover is clearly not red, and Jenny's response is not what one would expect when deciding if one likes a novel. Deliberate and apparent violation of maxims is called flouting. We do not expect the maxim to be violated. Flouting must be motivated. So here, Jenny, how do you like this novel? Oh, I like its red cover. So inferences obtained from flouting of maxims are called implicatures. Jenny may be implicating that there is nothing about the novel that she likes, not even the cover. But implicatures do not have to be necessarily true since the inferences are guessed at rather than derived from formal logic. So the second maxim we have the maxim of quantity. The maxim of quantity relates to the amount of information provided in conversation. It is one of the four conversational maxims that make up the cooperative principle. It is important not to withhold information necessary to keep the conversation going. We should not bombard our listeners with too much irrelevant information. In short, give the most helpful amount of information. When engaged in conversation, the maxim of quantity requires you to make your contribution as informative as is required for the purpose of exchanges. Do not make your contribution more informative than is required. For example, we have, do you have the time? Yes, it's 9:30. One find this normal. Why? Because the maxim is observed. Given the purpose of the conversation, the man contributes only as much information as is required, not excessive like it's 9:30 at night, Greenwich Mean Time, 20 May 2009. Not inadequate like it's nighttime. We have another example. Liz, can I have John's number? Yes. Despite her positive answer, we find Li's behavior weird. Why? Because the maxim is violated. Less information is provided than is required. Flouting a maxim. For example, Liz, can I have John's number? Yes. In a case such as this, one might infer that Liz doesn't have the number with her and will supply it later. Why? Because we do not expect the maxim to be violated. The apparent violation must be motivated. Deliberate and apparent violation of maxims is called flouting. We have here another example. Liz, can I have John's number? Yes. Inferences obtained from flouting of maxims are called implicatures. Liz may be implicating that your love rival is near, I'll tell you later. Or, I really don't want to give it to you because John doesn't like you. He likes me. But implicatures do not have to be necessarily true since the inferences are guessed at rather than derived from formal logic. The third maxim is the maxim of relation or relevance. Grice proposes this maxim as an explanation for a certain kind of regularity in conversational behavior with respect to the relevance of information provided at each turn of a conversation. When engaged in conversation, the maxim of relation requires you to be relevant. Note that if you want to join a conversation, you just can't begin to talk about whatever you want or whatever you like. You have to connect what you want to say or make it relevant to what is already being talked about. We have here examples. How do you like your steak cooked? Medium rare, please. One find this normal. Why? Because the maxim is observed. The woman contributes what is relevant for the purpose of the conversation, not irrelevant like I like steak very much or what a nice weather. Another example. Daniel, is Morgan good as a finance manager? He is a polite man and works on time. We find Daniel's behavior weird. Why? Because the maxim is violated. Daniel's contribution is irrelevant for the purpose of the conversation. Another example. Daniel, is Morgan good as a finance manager? He is a polite man and works on time. In this case, one might infer Morgan is not a good finance manager. Why? Because we do not expect the maxim to be violated. The apparent violation must be motivated. So the deliberate and apparent violation of maxims is called flouting. Daniel, is Morgan good as a finance manager? He is a polite man and works on time. Inferences obtained from flouting of maxims are called implicatures. So Daniel may be implicating that Morgan is no good as financial manager. Reasons for violation. If someone wants to deceive the listener. Example, interviewer. What is the military budget? President, could you keep secret? Interviewer, yes. President, so can I. I can keep secret too. So the president deceived the interviewer. Another reason for violation if someone doesn't want to respond. Example, you Meredith, you really love me? John, I like Ferris wheels and college football and things that go real fast. So the answer of John is not relevant to Meredith's questions. So we might infer that John doesn't love Meredith. So sad. So the fourth and last maxim is the maxim of manner. When engaged in conversation, the maxim of manner requires you to be perspicuous. Good evidence for this maxim is what you get penalized for when you write essays. If you are vague and ambiguous, that is not clear, you can lose marks. If you are overwordy, you can lose marks. And if you do not present what you say in the most sensible order for your argument, you can also lose marks. And although you don't lose marks in conversation, you can lose friends if you do not abide by these maxims. So the maxim of manner is related to how something is being said in the conversation. Grice proposes this maxim as an explanation for a certain kind of regularity in conversational behavior with respect to the way information is provided at each turn of a conversation. So you have to put what you say in the clearest, briefest, and most orderly manner. For example, we have here, let's begin by considering two propositions. P1, Laura ran to the pier. P2, Laura jumped. Logically, P1 and P2 is equal to P2 and P1. So, what did Laura do when she heard that Laura's boat had arrived? Laura jumped and ran to the pier. One finds this conversation normal. Why? because the maxim is observed. Another example. What did Laura do when she heard that Laura's boat had arrived? Laura ran to the pier and jumped. One find this bewildering. Why? Because the maxim is violated. Logically, P1 and P2 is equal to P2 and P1, but being orderly in the presentation of information is important in conversations. This is an effect of the maxim of manner. So the violation is, what did Laura do when she heard that Laura's boat had arrived? Laura ran to the pier and jumped. So the deliberate and apparent violation of maxims is called flouting. We do not expect the maxim to be violated. Flouting must be motivated. So inferences obtained from flouting of maxims are called implicatures. So the woman in red may be implicating that Laurie is Laura's nemesis because it seems that Laura is hiding or moving away from Laurie. Cooperative principle, the flouting of maxims. Grundy 2000 states that whenever a maxim is flouted, there must be an implicature to save the adherents from simply appearing to be a faulty contribution to a conversation. The infringement of maxims, which involves exploitation, that is, a procedure by which a maxim is flouted for the purpose of getting a conversational implicature, is usually carried out by means of indirect, contradictory utterances or a figure of speech such as irony, metaphor, overstatement, understatement, tautology, and hyperbole. Flouting Grice's maxims is a lot more common than violating them, and is usually considered more acceptable. When Grice's maxims are being flouted, it should be apparent to all those concerned. Being ironic, using metaphors, pretending to mishear someone, and using a tone of voice that does not match the content of what you're saying are all examples of flouting Christ's maxims. In flouting the maxim of quantity, its implicature occur when the speaker or the writer conveys messages that are not as informative as they are required, or the information is too much and unnecessary. For example, what time is it? It's 2 o'clock. In fact, it's 4 past 2, and now it's Sunday. So, B flouts the maxim of quantity since he gives too much information to A, while too much information can distract the listener. However, it is not very difficult to recover the implicature that B wants to show to A that he is a kind of time person. So the maxim of quantity is flouted when someone does not answer a question in full, usually to be annoying. So in flouting a maxim of quality, its implicature occur when your contribution one that is untrue or lack adequate evidence. For example, what is the capital city of Indonesia? B. I believe it's Bogor or maybe Jakarta. Indonesia has wide territory. So B flouts the maxim of quality since he gives insincere answer to A's question. The implicature of this flouting maxim would be that B doesn't know exactly the capital city of Indonesia. So the maxim of quality is flouted when someone is being ironic. So in flouting the maxim of relevance, its implicature arises when the speaker deviates from the particular topic being asked and discussed. Mom, have you done your homework? Son, my bicycle is broken, Mom. So the answer of the son is not answering the mother's question. The son tries to direct his mother's concern away from the question, which he does not like. So the maxim of relevance is flouted when someone pretends to mishear what has been said in order to change the direction of the conversation. So in flouting the maxim of manner, its implicature occur when the utterances are not brief, ambiguous, and obscure. So, for example, it's the taste. Advertisement often flout the maxim of manner. The statement flouts maxim of manner because it is obscure. The utterances triggers an interference process in which the addressee looks for the likeliest that is relevant in the context that obtain that the taste is good for people who favor Coca-Cola and bad for those who dislike it. So the maxim of manner is flouted when speakers use long words and technical jargon they know their listeners won't understand. So it is the flouting of maxims which constitute their extra breaking character as compared with linguistic rules. Essentially, maxim flouting is conversationally cooperative because all the participants in the conversation can see that a maxim has been broken on purpose by the speaker or writer in order to create an extra layer of meaning which is accessible by inference. Now let's discuss the concept of implicature. The purpose of communication is in order the message the speaker wants to convey is accepted appropriately by the hearer. To understand precisely what is meant by the speaker in uttering the utterances in a conversation, it is very important to understand the concept of implicature. According to Brown and Ewell, 1983, implicature is used to calculate what is suggested and meant by the speaker as a different thing from what he actually said explicitly. The concept of implicature was first introduced by Grice 1975 as the answer to the meaning concern which is unable to be covered by the ordinary semantics. It is insufficient to use semantics to cover the meaning of utterances. The inappropriateness of understanding of meaning of utterances much influences the achievement of the communication purpose. So, furthermore, Grice 1975 states that there are two kinds of implicature. Those are conventional implicature and conversational implicature. So, conventional implicature. It depends on something other than what is truth conditional in the conversational use or meaning or particular form of expression. Conventional implicatures are not based on the cooperative principles or the maxims. They do not have to occur in conversation, and they do not depend on special context for their interpretation. Conventional implicatures are associated with specific words and result in additional conveyed meanings when those words are used. The English conjunction but is one of these words. For example, we have here Mary got pregnant and John was pleased. Mary got pregnant, but John was pleased. So the difference between the two utterances above is in the conjunction and but. In the first sentence, the conjunction use is and. Thus, it means that the Mary's pregnancy makes John happy or pleased. In the other hand, In the second sentence, the conjunction used is but, which shows contradiction. Thus, it can mean that Mary's pregnancy makes John unhappy or not pleased. By understanding the different meaning between conjunction and but, well, therefore, the meaning of the utterances in the first sentence and the second sentence are clearly understood since the meaning of them is exactly the same with the meaning of structure of the utterances. So this case is called conventional implicature. It is resulted from the understanding of an utterance based on the structure's form of the utterance. Now let's discuss conversational implicature. It derives from a set of more general principles which regulate the proper conduct of conversation. Conversational implicature has more various meanings since understanding the meaning of the utterance much depend on the context in which the utterance occurs. The conversational implicature arises as a result of the cooperative principle violence. A conversational implicature is, therefore, something which is implied in conversation. That is, something which is left implicit in actual language use. According to Grice, utterance interpretation is not a matter of decoding messages, but rather involves taking the meaning of the sentences together with contextual information. Second, using inference rules. And lastly, working out what the speaker means on the basis of the assumption that the utterance confirms to the maxims. The main advantage of this approach from Grice's point of view is that it provides a pragmatic explanation for a wide range of phenomena, especially for conversational implicatures, a kind of extra meaning that is not literally contained in the utterance. The example of conversational implicature is this. A. Has John arrived? B. There is a red car in the garage. So we can conclude that B's answer for A's question has an implicature that John usually drives a red car, and B has seen that there is a red car which John usually drives in the garage. So therefore, B concludes that John has arrived. And that ends my report. Thank you so much for listening.